You've tried everything. You've been kind, patient, and understanding. You gave more than you should have. Your time, your energy, your love, all in hopes they'd notice. But they didn't. Instead, they pulled away. The more you gave, the less they seemed to care. It's not because you're not enough. It's because you were always there, always available, always reaching out. And when something feels guaranteed, people stop valuing it. But here's the secret. You don't need to fight for their attention. You don't need to beg for their love. Instead, you step back. You stay silent, and you let them feel the emptiness you leave behind. That's when everything changes. Because when you disappear from their world, even just a little, they start to wonder. They start to miss you. They start to regret taking you for granted. In this video, you'll discover 8 powerful strategies to make silence your strongest tool. Strategies that create longing, mystery, and respect, without manipulation or mind games. By the end, you'll know how to reclaim your power, quietly, confidently, and with grace. Because sometimes the loudest statement you can make is saying nothing at all. And when you've experienced this shift, when you've seen how powerful your silence can be, I'd love to hear your story. Share your experience in the comments below. Let's inspire and uplift each other. 1. Absence creates longing. They never noticed the way your eyes would light up when you were excited to see them. They never realized how often you rearranged your day just to make time for them. They didn't appreciate the warmth in your voice, the way you'd listen with your whole heart, or how you always made them feel seen, valued, and understood. It wasn't because you weren't enough. It was because you were always there. People stop noticing what feels guaranteed. The more accessible you are, the less they see your worth. But the moment you step back, when you pull away and leave behind an empty space, everything changes. That's when they feel it. The absence. The void you once filled without asking for anything in return. And in that silence, something powerful happens. They start to wonder. They start to miss you. Your absence doesn't just leave a gap in their day, it leaves a gap in their emotions. It's in the missed morning texts they once ignored. It's in the silence where your voice used to be. It's in the quiet moments when they reach for their phone and realize you're no longer reaching out. People crave what they feel they've lost, and when you step back, you become that loss, the memory that lingers, the presence they can't forget. Absence isn't passive, it's a force. It demands attention without a single word. When you're no longer chasing, no longer proving your worth, that's when they realize they need you. Not because you begged, not because you explained, but because your silence made them feel something they couldn't ignore. The weight of your absence. This isn't about playing games. It's about reclaiming your space. You don't need to slam doors or make dramatic exits. Simply stop showing up for people who take you for granted. Pull your energy back and watch what happens. The truth is, people aren't always aware of what you bring to their life until you stop bringing it. That's when the memories begin to resurface. The laughter you once shared, the quiet comfort of your presence, the small moments they overlooked, it all returns. Suddenly they remember how much they needed you. The Stoics understood this. Well, Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." That's the essence of stepping back. Instead of reacting with anger or seeking validation, you choose calm detachment. You create space. And let that space do the talking. Your absence becomes a mirror. In that silence, they're left to reflect on how they treated you. They'll remember the texts they ignored, the plans they canceled, and the way they brushed aside your efforts, and it will haunt them. The silence forces them to ask questions they never considered when you were always available. Why aren't they here anymore? Did I push them away? Have I lost them for good? And in those questions, their feelings shift. Doubt turns into regret. Indifference turns into longing. But stepping back isn't just about making others miss you. It's about rediscovering yourself. While they're caught in confusion, you're building something stronger, your own peace. This is your time to focus on what fulfills you, not on who's giving you attention. Invest in your growth. Read books that expand your mind. Spend time with people who cherish you. Explore your passions, build your inner strength, and embrace the quiet power that comes from putting yourself first. And as you do, something remarkable happens. You glow differently. Not because you're trying to impress anyone, but because you're finally giving your energy to yourself. The woman who once bent over backward for others is now walking taller, stronger, and calmer. And that glow? They'll notice it. The same people who overlooked you will suddenly feel your absence like a cold wind that lingers long after you've gone. They'll watch you from a distance, drawn in by the mystery of your silence, wondering how they ever let you slip away. And when they come back, and they will, you'll no longer feel the need to run toward them, because by then, you'll know something far more powerful. They're not chasing you because you changed who you are. They're chasing you because you finally remembered your own worth. 2. The power of mystery. Some things are better left unsaid, not because you're hiding, but because mystery is power. The less you reveal, the more people want to know. The mystery isn't just intriguing, it's unforgettable. It lingers in the mind, creating questions that demand answers. And when someone can't figure you out, they can't stop thinking about you. Women often fall into the trap of over-explaining, filling silences with details, justifications, and endless explanations. They believe that if they reveal enough, they'll finally be understood and finally feel seen. But the truth is, the more you reveal, the easier it becomes for people to overlook you. When you're predictable, you become forgettable. Think about the people who intrigue you most. The friend who never shares too much yet always leaves you curious. The colleague who says just enough to get your attention, but never reveals their full plan. The stranger whose quiet presence speaks louder than words. They stay on your mind because they give you something to wonder about. Mystery isn't about being cold or distant. It's about being intentional. When you choose your words carefully, when you allow silence to hang in the air instead of rushing to fill it, you create an irresistible presence. People are wired to fill in the blanks. When you step back and let them wonder, they start to imagine the parts of you they don't know. They build stories in their minds, stories where you're more interesting, more powerful, more valuable than you would have seemed if you had just explained yourself. Mystery taps into something deeper, the psychological pull of uncertainty. Humans crave clarity, but they're equally drawn to what they can't fully understand. This is why rare items seem more valuable and why limited editions are irresistible. What's scarce becomes desirable. The same is true in relationships. When you reveal too much, your every thought, your every feeling, you remove the element of discovery. They stop asking questions because they already know the answers. But when you hold something back, you create tension, a space that keeps them guessing. Suddenly, they're drawn to you. They start to wonder what you're thinking, what's behind your quiet smile, why you're no longer so eager to explain yourself. Mystery pulls them in, not through manipulation, but through presence. Imagine this. You've always been the one to text first, to overshare your feelings, to explain yourself when things go wrong. They've grown comfortable, too comfortable, because they believe they know you inside out. Then one day, you go quiet. Not out of anger, not out of spite, but because you've decided to protect your energy. You stop explaining why you're upset. You stop filling conversations with endless details. You step back, calm and composed, and let the silence linger. At first, they might shrug it off, but soon, they start to notice. Why aren't they texting me first anymore? Did I say something wrong? What's changed? That uncertainty makes them uncomfortable, and discomfort creates interest. They'll replay old conversations, searching for clues. They'll wonder what's happening in your mind, what's behind your silence, what you're thinking, what you're planning. And that's when they realize how little they actually know you. Mystery turns you from someone they once overlooked into someone they can't stop thinking about. It makes you memorable, not because you said too much, but because you said just enough. But here's the key. A mystery only works when it's real. Pretending to be mysterious by playing games or acting distant will only backfire. Real mystery comes from self-respect, from knowing you don't need to explain your every move or share your every thought. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed that power lies in control, not just control over others, but control over yourself. When you master the art of silence, you show strength. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's the heart of mystery, controlling what you reveal, and trusting that what you don't reveal holds even more power. Imagine being at a dinner party. Two people are sharing stories. One dominates the conversation, spilling every detail of their life. The other sits quietly, speaking only when necessary. Yet when they do speak, their words are thoughtful and intentional, leaving the room hanging on every word. Who leaves a stronger impression? It's not the one who said the most. It's the one who said just enough. You have that same power. When you embrace mystery, you create space for others to lean in, to ask questions, to crave more. So the next time someone asks why you've been quiet lately, resist the urge to explain. Don't rush to fill the silence. Instead, smile softly and say, "I've been focusing on myself." That's all they need to know. Let their mind fill in the blanks. Because mystery isn't about withholding. It's about choosing what you reveal. It's about trusting that your presence alone is powerful enough. And when they realize they can't quite figure you out, that's when they'll crave you most. 3. Less access, more value. People forget to treasure what they believe they'll never lose. The moment your presence feels guaranteed, it starts to lose its meaning. You know this feeling. The calls you always answer. The plans you always agree to. The emotional labor you quietly provide without hesitation. At first, they seemed grateful. They appreciated your warmth, your patience, your loyalty. But as time passed, your kindness became expected. Your availability became routine. The warmth you once offered so generously no longer felt special. It felt normal. That's what happens when you make yourself too accessible. When people can reach you anytime, they forget how valuable your presence truly is. They stop thinking of your company as a privilege. Instead, they treat it like a given. No questions asked, no effort required. But when you step back, when you become less available, less predictable, something shifts. Suddenly your absence speaks louder than your presence ever did. The space you leave behind forces them to notice what they once ignored. It's not about playing games or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about reclaiming your energy and showing the world that your time isn't free for just anyone to take. Imagine this. You're the sunlight that's always shining, steady, warm, constant. They never think about it because they know it's always there. But when clouds roll in and that warmth disappears, they suddenly notice. They remember what it feels like to miss you. They start craving what they once took for granted. The same principle applies to relationships. When you're always available, Your presence blends into the background. But when you pull back, even slightly, people start to feel the void. They wonder why you're no longer answering right away. They notice when you're not as quick to reply. They start questioning if they pushed you away, if they overlooked something important. And in that wondering, your value rises. But less access isn't just about creating distance. It's about creating respect. When you protect your time, you send a powerful message. My energy is valuable, and I choose where to invest it. That confidence commands attention. It shows that you know your worth, that you refuse to be treated like an afterthought. People respect what they can't easily have. That's why luxury brands don't throw their products on every shelf. Scarcity creates value. When something requires effort to obtain, people desire it more. You are no different. Your time, your presence, your attention, these are gifts. But when you give them too freely, they stop feeling like gifts. They feel like obligations. And soon, people start assuming you'll always be there. The Stoics understood this well. They believed that true power comes from control. Control over your emotions, your actions, and most importantly, your energy. Marcus Aurelius didn't fill his life with people who drained him. He valued his time, protecting it like gold. He knew that constantly giving, without boundaries, would leave him empty. And when you're empty, you have nothing left to offer. The truth is, your presence should feel like sunlight after a storm, rare enough to be appreciated, yet warm enough to leave a lasting impact. So how do you create that balance? It starts with boundaries. Stop answering messages the second they arrive. Don't drop everything to accommodate someone who treats you as an option. Stop saying yes when your heart is quietly whispering no. This doesn't mean you need to ignore people or push them away. It simply means being intentional, choosing where your energy flows, and refusing to let anyone take it for granted. When you pull back, people will notice. They'll wonder why you're not as available. They'll think about the warmth you once brought, the way you listened, the comfort you provided, and they'll realize how rare that feeling actually is. But this shift isn't just for their benefit. It's for you. Less access gives you more space to focus on yourself. When you're no longer chasing people or bending to fit their plans, you reclaim your time. That's when you grow. That's when you build the life you deserve, one that doesn't depend on being constantly available to others. And here's what's remarkable. When you pull back, the people who truly value you will make an effort. They'll reach out. They'll want to know what's changed. They'll crave your presence because they finally realized how powerful it is. But those who never truly cared, they'll drift away. And that's a gift in itself. When you stop making yourself so easy to reach, you'll discover something powerful. You don't need to chase anyone. The right people, the ones who genuinely value you, will always make the effort to stay close. So step back. Guard your energy like it's precious, because it is. You are not a convenience. You are not an option. You are a woman of value. And your presence should feel like a privilege, not a right. 4. Silence as a form of control. Silence unsettles people. It creates space. Space for thoughts to grow louder, for emotions to rise, for insecurities to take over. And in that space, you hold the power. When you stop explaining yourself, when you resist the urge to defend your choices or fill awkward pauses, you force people to face something uncomfortable, themselves. They start to wonder, did I say something wrong? Why aren't they responding? What are they thinking? That silence lingers in their mind, replaying itself like a forgotten tune they can't quite remember but can't stop humming. They feel it in their chest. that uneasy sense that something has shifted. This is the power of silence. It's not passive, it's deliberate. Imagine you're in a heated argument. The other person is raising their voice, throwing accusations, demanding answers. Instead of firing back, you pause. No reaction, no anger, just stillness. That silence doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're in control. It shows that you refuse to be pulled into their storm. And while they're busy searching your face for a response, you've already won. Because silence makes them question themselves. It forces them to reflect, to rethink, to second guess. In a world that rewards noise, constant updates, endless explanations, overshared emotions, your silence stands out. It demands attention. People expect reactions. They expect you to explain, defend, or justify. When you choose silence instead, you disrupt those expectations, and in that disruption, you take control. But silence isn't just powerful in conflict. It's equally effective in relationships, friendships, and even social dynamics. Consider this. You've always been the one to smooth things over, the one who apologizes first, explains your feelings in detail, or over-justifies your actions to keep the peace. They've come to expect it. But what happens when you stop? What happens when you don't rush to fix things? When you no longer explain yourself, when you simply step back and say nothing at all? Suddenly, they're left to fill the silence. They start retracing their words, wondering what went wrong. That quiet forces them to confront their own behavior. Not because you told them they were wrong, but because your absence spoke for itself. Silence becomes their mental prison, a loop they can't escape. They replay past conversations, searching for clues. They imagine what you must be thinking, and in their attempt to find answers, they realize just how much your presence means. This is where the Stoics thrived. They mastered the art of restraint, not out of fear, but out of strength. Marcus Aurelius understood that true power lies in mastering your emotions, not unleashing them at every turn. By choosing silence, you're choosing to protect your peace. You refuse to be dragged into drama. You refuse to waste your energy explaining yourself to people who refuse to listen. Silence doesn't mean giving up. It means you've chosen to let your actions speak louder than your words. When someone disrespects you, silence shows you won't tolerate it. When someone undervalues you, silence creates space for them to realize what they're losing. But silence doesn't just influence others, it changes you too. When you embrace silence, you become calmer. Your mind grows clearer. You stop reacting out of impulse and start responding with intention. You learn to pause, to reflect, before you speak. This calmness becomes your armor. It shields you from those who thrive on chaos. The ones who push your buttons just to see how far they can go. And when you refuse to react, they lose their power. They'll try to provoke you, to force you back into the role of the over-explainer, the peacekeeper, the one who always bends. First. But when you stay quiet, calm, unbothered, unshaken, they realize they've lost control. Silence makes them feel exposed. Suddenly, they're the ones who look emotional, desperate, or unstable. And the more they try to pull you back in, the stronger your silence becomes. But this isn't about revenge. It's about self-respect. Silence teaches you to value your energy, to give your words only to those who've earned the right to hear them. You don't need to prove yourself to anyone. You don't need to explain your choices to people who refuse to understand. And you certainly don't need to waste your breath convincing someone to value what they're too blind to see. So the next time someone demands an explanation, resist the urge to explain. Don't justify your decisions or scramble to fix their discomfort. Instead, let silence speak for you. If they deserve an answer, they'll earn it. If they don't, your silence will say everything they need to know. Your quiet confidence, your refusal to react, will leave a mark they won't forget. And as they sit in that silence, questioning, regretting, and craving your presence, you'll realize something powerful. You never needed to explain yourself in the first place. 5. Focus on self-growth. In silence, growth happens in the quiet moments, when no one is watching, when applause is absent, and when your progress goes unnoticed. Silence isn't just about withholding words. It's about creating space for transformation. Deep, undeniable change that speaks for itself. You know that feeling, when life feels stagnant, when your energy seems wasted on people who barely notice your presence. When you're constantly giving, explaining, and proving yourself, it's easy to forget what really matters. You. The greatest mistake women make isn't loving too much or caring too deeply. It's neglecting themselves in the process. They become fixers, peacekeepers, the dependable ones who are always there. And in that endless giving, their own growth quietly fades into the background. But what happens when you step back? When you withdraw your energy from people who drain, you and focus on building something stronger within yourself? That's when the glow-up begins, the kind that turns heads without you needing to say a word. People often think a glow-up is just about looks, better hair, clearer skin, a new wardrobe. But the most powerful transformation starts from within. It's in the way you move, the quiet confidence that grows when you pour your energy into yourself instead of wasting it on others. Imagine this. While they're busy wondering why you've gone quiet, you're building a version of yourself they never expected. You're reading books that expand your mind. You're investing in your health, your strength, your posture, the way you carry yourself. You're learning new skills, setting new goals, and feeding your soul with things that inspire you. And while you're doing this, silently, steadily, people will start to notice. They'll see the way you've changed, how you walk with purpose, how your eyes reflect a calm they can't quite understand. They'll feel your presence, stronger, sharper, more grounded than before. The silence you once feared will become your greatest strength. Marcus Aurelius once said, "A man's worth is no greater than the worth of his ambitions." The Stoics believed that true growth happens when you stop chasing distractions, when you quiet the noise of the world and focus on building the life you truly desire. That's why silence is so powerful. It removes the clutter, the endless conversations, the emotional chaos, and leaves you with one focus: yourself. Silence gives you room to heal, to reflect on what's been holding you back. It creates space for clarity, to question what you really want, and more importantly, what you don't. During this quiet phase, you'll notice something remarkable. The people who once took your presence for granted will start to wonder. They'll notice the space you've left behind, the calm you now carry, and they'll realize they never really knew you at all. But by then, you won't care. Because while they were busy questioning your silence, you were evolving, becoming sharper, wiser, stronger. The truth is, silence isn't just a pause. It's a powerful tool for self-discovery. It's in the silence that you meet yourself again. The version of you that isn't shaped by their opinions, their demands, or their expectations. This new version of you, calm, focused, intentional, doesn't beg for attention. You don't need to explain your absence because your growth will speak for itself. When you embrace silence as a form of self-care, everything shifts. You'll no longer tolerate shallow connections because you've invested too much in yourself to settle for less. You'll walk away from situations that drain you, not out of anger, but out of respect for your own peace. People will notice, not because you asked them to, but because your energy has changed. They'll wonder what's different. They'll sense that you're no longer the person they once knew, that something about you feels stronger, more powerful. And in their curiosity, they'll crave the connection they once took for granted. But this time, you won't need their approval. because you've built something stronger inside yourself. The Stoics taught that true power comes from mastery over yourself, your emotions, your energy, your focus. By stepping back and focusing on your own growth, you reclaim that power. So stop explaining your silence. Stop justifying your absence. Instead, use that space to rebuild, to become the woman you were always meant to be. Read the books that challenge you. Embrace the solitude that sharpens you. Move your body, feed your mind, and protect your peace like it's gold. And when they finally see you again, when they notice the strength in your silence and the calm in your presence, they won't just see someone who stepped back. They'll see someone who rose higher than they ever imagined. And when they finally ask, "What changed?" smile quietly and say, "I've been focusing on myself." 6. No explanations needed. You don't owe anyone an explanation, not for your choices, not for your boundaries, not for the life you've chosen to build. Yet so often, women find themselves trapped in this exhausting cycle, over-explaining, justifying, and defending decisions that are nobody's business. Why didn't you answer my message right away? Why did you leave early last night? Why aren't you as available as before? And suddenly, you're caught. You're scrambling for words, not because you're wrong, but because silence feels too uncomfortable. You feel pressured to fill the void with explanations, as if your worth depends on their understanding. But here's the truth. It doesn't. Your life is yours. Your choices are yours. And the moment you understand that, you'll break free from the burden of explaining yourself. People often ask for explanations, not because they deserve one, but because they want control. When you explain, you're giving them power. You're inviting them to weigh in on your life, your feelings, your decisions. But when you resist that urge, when you let your silence speak for itself, you take that power back. Imagine this. You're out for dinner with friends, and someone asks why you've been so distant lately. Instead of scrambling for excuses, instead of over-explaining every detail, you smile calmly and say, "I've been focusing on myself." No more, no less. That silence leaves them with nothing to hold on to. No room to argue, no weak points to exploit. It's calm, it's powerful, and it forces them to accept your choice, not because you convinced them, but because you refused to defend it. This kind of silence is strength, the kind that says, "I don't owe you access to my thoughts, my reasons, or my heart." The Stoics understood this well. They believed that true power lies in mastering yourself, your emotions, your responses, your need for approval. Epictetus once said, "If anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said of you, but answer, 'He was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone.'" In other words, don't waste your breath justifying yourself to people who are determined to misunderstand you. Explaining yourself won't change the minds of those who've already made their judgments. It won't soften the hearts of those who refuse to respect your choices, and it won't earn you the approval of those who never valued you to begin with. But what it will do is drain your energy. It will make you feel smaller, as if your decisions require validation from people who shouldn't have a say in your life at all. That's why silence matters. When you refuse to explain yourself, you're drawing a boundary, one that says, "I respect myself enough to know that my choices are my own." And that boundary is powerful, because suddenly they're left wondering. They're left to question why you didn't explain, to rethink what they assumed they knew about you. Your silence forces them to sit with their discomfort, and in that discomfort, they face the truth. You are no longer bending to meet their expectations. But here's the key. Silence isn't about arrogance or cruelty. It's about wisdom. It's about knowing when to engage and when to step back. There will be moments when an explanation is necessary. Moments when honesty strengthens a relationship or clears a misunderstanding. But most of the time, your silence will say everything they need to know. When someone questions your absence, stay calm. Smile. And say, "I've been busy." When they demand answers, stay composed. Say, "I'm focusing on myself right now." When they push for details, pause, breathe, and remember this: you are not responsible for making others comfortable with your choices. Your peace doesn't need to be explained. Your growth doesn't need to be justified. And your boundaries don't require their approval. Every time you resist the urge to explain yourself, you're reclaiming your power. You're saying, "My life is my own, and I trust myself enough to live it without asking for permission." That quiet confidence, the strength that comes from choosing silence, will make you unforgettable. They'll remember the way you stood firm, the way you refused to apologize for choosing yourself. And in that silence, they'll realize the truth. You were never theirs to control in the first place. 7. Emotional detachment builds. Strength emotional detachment isn't about becoming cold or distant. It's about reclaiming your peace when others try to steal it. For too long, you've given people too much power over your emotions. A sharp comment could shatter your mood. An unanswered text could leave you restless. One careless action could leave you doubting your worth. It's exhausting, feeling like your inner calm is always in someone else's hands. But imagine this. What if you didn't react? What if no matter what they said or did, your peace remained unshaken? Emotional detachment gives you that power. The power to stay calm, composed, and confident, even when others try to test you. It's not about suppressing your feelings. It's about learning to master them. When you detach, you stop giving your energy to people who thrive on drama and control. Their attempts to stir your emotions fall flat. The insults, the silence, the games, none of it touches you anymore. That's when they start to feel powerless because suddenly, their words don't have the effect they once did. They try harder, speaking louder, pushing more, testing your limits. But you remain still, calm as a mountain, steady as a fortress. In their frustration, they realize they've lost their grip. The moment you refuse to engage, you become untouchable. Emotional detachment isn't about being indifferent. It's about being wise. People who manipulate others thrive on your reactions. They push buttons because they know you'll respond. They provoke you because they're counting on you to lose your cool. The more you react, the more power you give them. But when you stay calm, when you let their chaos meet your silence, the dynamic shifts. Suddenly, they're no longer in control. Imagine someone hurling a cruel remark your way, expecting you to snap back. Instead, you pause, breathe, and say nothing. That silence is deafening. They're left holding their anger alone, like a flame that can't spread because you refuse to fuel it. That's the power of detachment. It turns their chaos into your calm. Sometimes emotional detachment requires distance. Walking away isn't weakness. It's wisdom. When someone repeatedly tries to drag you into arguments, guilt trips, or manipulative behavior, stepping back isn't avoidance, it's protection. By choosing silence instead of confrontation, you stop feeding their toxic patterns. They're left scrambling, unsure how to handle a version of you that no longer reacts. They begin to overthink, replaying conversations, wondering what went wrong, questioning if they pushed too far. That silence leaves a powerful impression. It forces them to face their own behavior, not because you lectured them, but because you refused to engage. And in that silence, they start to feel your absence. Suddenly, the person they once took for granted feels distant, and that distance makes them realize just how much of your energy they depended on. Emotional detachment also creates an unexpected advantage: mystery. When you stop reacting, people can't predict you. They can't read you like they once did. And that unpredictability drives them restless. They start to question what's changed, why you're suddenly so calm, why you no longer explain yourself, why their attempts to get a rise out of you fail every time. That silence becomes a mirror, forcing them to sit with their own insecurities. And in that stillness, they begin to understand that you've outgrown their games. You've stepped back, not out of weakness, but out of strength. In relationships, emotional detachment is especially powerful. Too often, women fall into the trap of giving too much, over-explaining, over-apologizing, and overcompensating. When someone pulls away, they panic, rushing to fix things, to regain closeness, to prove their worth. But that desperation only drives the other person further away. Emotional detachment flips the script. Instead of chasing, you step back. Instead of over-explaining, you stay calm. Instead of seeking validation, you focus on yourself. That silence is powerful, not because you're playing games, but because you're choosing yourself. When someone feels you slipping away, not because you beg them to stay, but because you silently let go, they start to question everything. They wonder why you're so calm, why you're no longer fighting for their attention, why you seem free. And in that uncertainty, they start to realize what they've lost. Emotional detachment doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop giving others permission to dictate how you feel. It's knowing that your peace is yours to protect. It's trusting that if someone values you, they won't need you to chase, explain, or beg. And if they don't value you, you let them go. Calmly, quietly, without a word. Because once you master your emotions, you become the strongest person in the room. Not because you're loud, but because nothing can shake your peace. And that calm, it's unforgettable. 8. Let them come to you. When you stop chasing, something powerful happens. People start wondering why you're no longer there. The silence you leave behind becomes louder than words. They feel the gap. They sense the absence. And suddenly, the one who used to seek is now being sought after. Too often, women fall into the habit of overgiving, giving too much time, energy, and attention to people who barely lift a finger in return. You rearrange your schedule for someone who never prioritizes you. You pour out your heart in long messages, only to receive brief replies. You linger in conversations, hoping they'll finally ask how you're feeling. But they don't. And the more you give, the more they expect. It's a dangerous cycle, one that leaves you drained, undervalued, and invisible. But what happens when you step back? What happens when you stop chasing their attention and start reclaiming your energy? That's when the dynamic shifts. Suddenly, they notice your absence. They wonder why you're not so quick to answer anymore. They replay old conversations, searching for clues. Did they say something wrong? Did they push too far? Their mind races, and that's when they start missing you. People are wired to desire what feels just out of reach. The moment you become less available, your value rises. It's not about playing games. It's about teaching people to respect your time and presence. When you always show up, they forget what life feels like without you. But when you disappear, they're left to sit with the silence. And that silence makes them realize just how much they depended on your presence. This shift isn't just about relationships. It's about how you carry yourself in life. People are naturally drawn to those who radiate self-assurance. They're curious about the ones who don't seek validation, who don't over-explain themselves, who aren't desperate for approval. That quiet confidence is magnetic. It whispers, "I know my worth. And if you want to be part of my life, you'll have to show me why you deserve a place in it." The Stoics understood this principle well. They believed in mastering the art of detachment, knowing when to step back, hold steady, and let others come to you. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, The pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. In other words, your peace isn't tied to how others respond to you. It's tied to your ability to control what you give and to whom. By stepping back, you're not punishing anyone. You're protecting your peace. You're sending a silent message. I respect myself enough to walk away when I'm not valued. That kind of self-respect leaves an unforgettable impression. The moment they feel your absence is the moment they start questioning what went wrong. And in their search for answers, they're pulled back toward you. Not because you begged for their attention, but because you quietly created space for them to feel your value. This approach isn't about pride. It's about power. The Mao, power to know that your presence is a privilege, not a given. The power to set boundaries without guilt. The power to stand firm in your worth without chasing, proving, or pleading. When you master this, you become the kind of person people remember long after you've walked away. They may not understand why they miss you, but they will. They'll notice the conversations that once flowed so easily. They'll remember the calm strength you carried, the way you listened without interrupting, the way you offered wisdom without demanding attention, the way you made their world feel a little brighter. And when that light fades, they'll crave it again. They'll reach out. They'll ask how you've been. They'll search for ways to bring you back into their life. And here's the truth. You'll have a choice. Not out of bitterness or pride, but because you've built a life so full of peace, purpose, and self-respect that you no longer need to chase what's unsure. You've become the prize, the one they know they can't afford to lose. Let them come to you. Not because you're playing hard to get, but because you finally understand your worth. Your silence speaks louder than words. Your absence tells a story they won't forget. And when they return, if they return, they'll know that your presence is no longer something they can take for granted. That's the beauty of stepping back. You don't have to beg. You don't have to explain. You don't have to fight for space in someone's life. Because the moment you step back with quiet confidence, they'll feel your absence. And if they truly value you, they'll come back stronger than ever. And if they don't, that silence will teach you everything you need to know. Stepping back isn't about silence for the sake of silence. It's about power. The quiet kind that doesn't demand attention, but commands it naturally. When you embrace absence, when you resist the urge to over-explain, and when you build your life quietly with purpose, something remarkable happens. People start noticing you, not because you chased their attention, but because your presence carries a rare kind of value. This isn't manipulation. It's wisdom. Knowing when to step back, when to stay silent, and when to focus on yourself is a skill that requires strength. But the rewards are undeniable. The people who truly matter will come back stronger, with greater respect and deeper appreciation. And those who don't? They were never meant to stay. Their absence will make room for better connections, ones built on respect, mutual effort, and genuine admiration. So start today. Step back when you feel drained. Stay silent when your words won't be valued. And focus on building a life so rich, so fulfilling, that others feel the difference when you're no longer chasing their approval. The world will notice your growth, not because you announced it, but because they'll feel it. If this message resonates with you, share your story below. Let others know how choosing silence, self-respect, and inner strength has transformed your relationships and your life. Your journey may inspire someone else to take that first step back, and in doing so, finally step into their power.